Hello, this is Dr. Joseph from Bridges, Afghanistan. Today we're going to talk about how to learn English on your own. This is part one of 3 videos on the topic. Now, of course, the best way to learn any language is to have a friend or somebody who is kind and ready to listen, a patient person who's able to help you with your language learning. But that's not always possible. And so these are some ideas on how you can learn language even if you're on your own. The first part of this series, this video, will actually help you with any type of language learning, even if you have somebody who can help you. Now, the most important thing that we talk about in our lessons is that language learning is not just about memorizing words. The best way to learn a language is to think about it like a well. We have a whole video on this explaining it even in Dari about how the language learning process works. Now, language learning is the more you expose to it, the more you hear it, the more you read it. The more you read it in natural settings, the quicker you will be able to understand it. So one of the important concepts, one of the important ideas to know about is that the more you listen, the better you will be able to speak. When you first hear a word, you just barely understand it. You understand a little bit about it. As you hear it again and again and again, the words start to make sense even outside of their first context. This is what we call the well principle. What this means for language learning and even learning at home is that the more you understand, the better you'll be able to speak. And the same principle is true for reading and writing. The more you read, the more you can begin to write better. So how fast can you grow? Well, obviously, if you put a lot of words into your head through natural ways, just like water rains onto the ground in a natural way, the more that will come out of your mouth in a natural way, and you'll be able to speak more. It is important in language learning that you can understand more than you speak. So what we suggest is that you need something like 60 to 80% of what you hear or what you read to be something you understand. If it is less than 50%, then you probably aren't growing. If it is up to 100%, then you aren't growing. What you need is something that is a little difficult and not too easy, but something that you can still understand. So, the other part of this is to know what phase you are. At Bridges, Afghanistan, we talk about language learning in phases. If you look at this screen right here, we have a step-by-step process of how people learn languages. The first phase can be up to 100 hours. That's when you understand just simple words that are in front of you. You can't talk very much. Phase 2 is about 150 hours. You can say simple phrases and things that you see, but you can't explain much, but you can understand simple stories. If you're listening to this video, you are probably in phase 3. That takes about 250 hours. You can speak simple stories and understand complex stories. Phase 4 takes up to 500 hours. Speak complex stories and you can understand complex explanations. The important thing about this is that even at home, you can add the hours. If you think about language learning as getting more hours, you can add hours even in phase 3 or phase 4 by yourself. You do that by doing lots of listening and lots of reading. So the first step for learning your at home is to know your phase. What are you? Are you in phase 2, phase 3, phase 4? And then you can find materials that fit your phase. The second important step is to make time to study. Make sure you set aside an hour, 2 hours, and 3 hours. Make a plan for what you want to do in your language learning. Third, we want to separate listening and reading, or listening from writing. We'll put listening and speaking together, and we put reading and writing together. So when you are studying at home, the main thing you can work on is your listening and your reading, but we encourage you to separate them. So find listening materials that you can just listen to be able to get the meaning of it, to understand it at 60 to 80%. And then set aside some time for reading also, and get reading material that just requires you to do reading at 60 to 80% of your understanding. Those are the 4 steps we can encourage you for understanding how to learn English on your own. In the next video, I'll describe some materials for listening that you can use in order to study at home. But remember the 4 steps. First of all, know your phase. Are you phase 2, phase 3, phase 4? Make some time to study. Third, use listening materials for listening. And fourth, use reading materials for reading. Thanks for listening. If this video is helpful, please subscribe and tell your friends about it. We are looking forward to providing more and more videos on how to learn English the best ways. Thanks again.